So, very good evening to all of you. It's indeed my pleasure, real pleasure, because I have lot many friends, colleagues, very esteemed juniors, stalwarts like Nitin and my friend Akash, both the Akashes who are my very dear friends. So, it's a wonderful occasion where we have a smallish group where we can have very fair interaction with each other. And I am here today to share my experience with this new material that was introduced to me about a year and a half back. And more than any authority or an absolutely expertise on the material, it is just sharing of what I have gone through, what I have found, and what are the strengths of this particular system. So, we all are here to share our cases as well as the experiences that we have gathered in the various applications that we have seen. So, once again I thank all of you for sparing your Sunday, valuable Sunday evening in these difficult times. And I am glad to be here all the way from Nagpur, and my city is still in lockdown unfortunately, but we are hoping that things will get better very soon. Right. So, we come to an era, a lot of you will identify with these images that we have started doing full mouth implants very successfully. Where sinus poses a challenge, we tackle it in different ways. We throw sinus lift at it, and we are very good at it now, we are very successful. Where we cannot do these lifts, we have Nitin, who wonderfully bypasses it and so gracefully does zygoma, and we do all types of guided bone regeneration, right. But to a prosthodontist and a prosthodontist heart, we feel that the business end of dentistry is the teeth, right. That is the where all the crux of the matter is. And all this while we have perfected our surgical techniques, we have perfected various regeneration philosophies, etc. But when it comes to the actual prosthetic rehabilitation, we find that we are lacking, right. You all will agree, you all are very experienced implantologists over here, that we face more complications with prosthetics rather than surgery, right, on day to day implantology. So, the search is for that perfect material or a combination which will help us forego all these problems and give us a predictable solution for all our implant application, or rather I will extend it, not even implant application, for all our restorative needs, right. So, this is the cycle of material development. We all started with hybrid prosthesis. Our textbook prescribed it as the go-to material or the go-to technique for restoring full arches, especially those where there was lot of restorative space, lot of bone resorption. We all have been there and done that and cried also. So, there were times when we had a lot of success. So, all these hybrid prostheses, they look fabulous. Immediately post insertion, we take a lot of pictures, we are very happy with it, and then the time comes when the patient starts visiting you again and again with chipped teeth, with acrylic popping off, metal getting exposed, sometimes the metal framework breaking off, and those days we were using castings. We didn't have better technology, so we all know the problems of not getting a passive fit with castings and the issues that we face, right. So, today if I tell you about PMMA as a implant restorative material, you all will laugh and cringe in your, all those bad memories will come back, all those breakages, and you have taken a vow not to use this combination of this material again, right. Of course, next is cemented porcelain fused to metal bridges or full arches. Now, you all will agree that we have certain cases which are very close to our heart, where we have given cemented prosthesis and they have absolutely zero problem. Full arches, no screw access whatsoever, no screw retained prosthesis, simple cemented prosthesis done 10 years, 15 years back, they have no issues. So, there was something which worked as for the cemented prosthesis. Call it one abutment one time, all those principles which we are understanding now, we had not knowingly, unknowingly applied them many decades back, but they are surviving. We have Anuj here too, right. So, I am glad to have so many stalwarts coming here. Now, the problem with cemented prosthesis is when it fails, then it makes you really cry, because cutting off a cemented prosthesis in the patient's mouth is something which is nothing less than a nightmare. You end up spending hours together, and then like I was talking in the morning, spoil your cartridge of your handpieces, break so many birds, and still you're working at it. So there has to be a midway somewhere, right? Then came the era of screw retained mallow type of prosthesis. So we wanted to restore big spaces, but we did not want to use acrylic because it has its own problem. So there was a solution where we had a framework of one material, and then we have individual crowns or bridges of different materials or the same material. So to an extent, certain problems were solved. But for me as a prosthodontist, retrievability of the prosthesis is still very important, right? The whole idea, otherwise we were not doing bad with our cemented prosthesis. Why are we moving away from it? It's retrievability. But when you try to retrieve a mallow type of prosthesis made in PFM, for example, it's not that easy, because you have to cement those crowns with a decent cement, because temporary cements don't last and the crown keeps on popping off. So you have to cut that crown off, and then search for that screw access hole. If it is underneath the crown, if it is lingual or palatal, you are lucky. So we are not completely sorted, right? We still have certain issues with the mallow type of prosthesis. Although in certain cases it works beautifully, but there are others where we still face a lot of issues. So then finally we come to a point where we have the modern biopolymers in the form of PEEK. This is a very exciting material, polyether ether ketone, and then it has been enhanced by infiltrating it with various fillers, and when layered with composite resin, lab process composites, which have gone tremendously high on their quality today, it gives us an excellent combination. Now, how does this really come as a good solution? Is the fact that a decade back I was pretty much convinced that polymers is the way forward. We have done with a lot of metal, ceramic and their combination, including zirconia. It's a pretty hard material that we really have to deal with. So when we talk about restoring implants, we want a material which will be resilient, which will absorb certain amount of forces and not transmit them right to the implants. So although metal, ceramic and zirconia worked very well for our natural teeth restorations, but it does not translate the same way in our metal ceramic restoration, our implant restoration, right? So we need a material which is a little forgiving, which can absorb some forces. So then comes the case where you have a patient where you restore them with a temporary prosthesis, whether it is on natural teeth or implants, and they are pretty happy with it, right? And when you switch over to the permanent ones, they somehow feel that it's jarring, and it's that it's like hard surfaces hitting each other. There is sound coming. It's not very comfortable for them. They said that temporary was far better. So these are the things that make you feel that polymers have some quality in them which will help us solve this enigma of implant restoration. So come in biopolymers, we are already experienced with PEEK or BioHPP, which is the enhanced form of PEEK, and we can mill a framework. Now the advantages of PEEK, we already know that it is 1/5 the weight of equivalent weight of a metal ceramic prosthesis. It can be milled very easily in the laboratory. It does not require any post processing like sintering or crystallization and things like that, right? It can be easily layered if needed. It can be used as a framework, and you can make individual crowns, just as in this case where we have the framework and we have individual bridges. These bridges are then bonded onto the PEEK framework, and then gingival layering done, and you have a very decent prosthesis which can occupy as much space as you want. So even in a FP3 situation, this works really well. Light in weight, inert material, excellent handling characteristic, but one feature which really seals the deal as far as I am concerned when we are seeking solutions, especially for full arch restoration, is the modulus of elasticity. So this is the material which has the modulus of elasticity which is exactly like bone, closest to the bone we have ever been before. So we had metal, we have ceramics, we have zirconia. titanium, but we never got close to bone at all. This is something which flexes yet doesn't break, right? And this is what we really need for most of our implant needs, right? So then I thought that we had some good success with this biopolymer, and we thought that, you know, let us push it and see what we can do. So this a 65-year-old lady comes to me. She's been to many implantologists, and I don't have the CBCT to show you, but any experienced implantologist can see that there is no bone, right, anywhere. The ridges are knife edge, okay. So what you need is a lot of augmentation, okay, or what you need is Nitin for doing zygoma. But you know how some patients are really mortally scared of surgeries. So she said that, you know, cost is not my issue, but I do not want the, you know, flaps and, you know, grafting, and everybody has scared her showing photographs of grafting being done. That is the worst thing that you can do to convince a patient, and that has been done. And she said that don't even talk about surgery. Can you do anything else? He said, I am a prosthodontist. I will happily give you a cast partial denture, and I think it will work really well in this case. So she said that no dentures. I have tried that also and tried many times, but it has failed. So I told you, no, you must have tried the acrylic denture, but I will make you the cast partial denture, which is far, far better. She said, no, no removable. Can you do anything? So I said that, you know, I thought in my mind that this is a good case where I can see the limits of a biopolymer and see what it can do. So I told her that there is a material we can try. I can try. That is what I will tell you honestly, that it has worked well with implants, but I am not very sure in your case it is going to work. She said, I am fine, I am game for it, let's try. So these are bridges milled in bio-HPP, long span bridges. So we have a few prosthodontists sitting here, and that's why I told you don't throw your shoe on me, because if a prosthodontist sees such a long span bridge, we cannot do this in metal ceramic, we cannot do this in zirconia. It is sacrilege, absolutely, right? But PEEK is something which allows flexion. So just give it a thought. It is something which allows the bridge to flex with the, you know, the rigidity of those materials was the issue. It did not match with the probably mandibular flexion or the chewing forces that we, you know, we were incurring on the prosthesis. So this is a great combination where we have the framework, and then it was layered with composite resin, okay. So pretty cool result. She was very happy with it. That's very lightweight, and it was done basically in 2 appointments. You know, preps, phase board transfer, everything was designed digitally, milled, layered, and it fitted. I thought that, you know, this will be a trial appointment, and let me see what I can do. It fit perfectly. Occlusion was hardly much modification was needed, and so I gave it 6 months. You know, let me see. I think I'll get a call in 6 months that something has broken, and then we go to plan B, happily. But it has been 4 years today, and nothing has gone wrong in that case. She comes for regular checkup. Once a little bit of composite had chipped off, and the beauty of these materials, it can be repaired in the mouth chair side in matter of minutes with direct composite. You don't need a laboratory, you don't need to even retrieve, this cannot be retrieved easily. But even if it happens to be a implant prosthesis, it can be repaired. So this is what our experience has been with biopolymers, and that is why I feel that it is strongly the way forward when we talk about other restorations. This is the radiograph of that same case, still going strong, right? So when we talk about graphene, graphene is one of the most promising materials in science today, in fact. So if you see, there are so many applications. So I was telling, we had a session in the morning with dental technicians, and it was a very great session. They shared their experiences. Some of them have been using this. So Tesla uses batteries which are made out of graphene. A lot of components in your mobile phones are made up of graphene, and lot of applications, right from space to defense to filtering to printing, you name it. And so graphene is basically a allotrope of carbon. It is a single layer atom of carbon which has a 2-dimensional honeycomb structure. So if you stack graphene over each other, you get graphite, right? Graphite is what we use in our pencils, right? If you form a tube out of it, it forms graphite nanotubes, which is another, very strong things which has been used. So there are several forms of this material, and I was very shocked to know that this is the strongest material known to human being, known to man ever, strongest, stronger than diamond. Okay, so it is quite promising. So without going into too many technical aspects of the material which you can Google and see on Wikipedia, let us see the relevant points which are useful for us. Very strong material, abrasion resistance, superconductor at room temperature. That is why it is going to change now. Silicon Valley may be a graphene valley now, because that's how it is affecting electronics in that field. Then of course it can be combined with other substances, and that is how we have our application today here. Very high density, transparent. No, so that is because it is just a single layer of atom. It is transparent. So some time back somebody was telling me that graphene, it is black in color, how do you use it in dentistry? So that is graphite, right? So there was a form of carbon which was used for making implant frameworks, but that was black in color. So it had to be opaqued and then you could use. So that is a disadvantage for the material. So this is transparent and hence it can be combined into any color that you want. Bacteriostatic, that is a unique property that the material has, does not allow bacteria to grow on it. So in the oral environment, that is a boon to us. And of course, for me, very important factor is flexibility. So any restorative material, if it has to work in the mouth, truly it has to be flexible to a certain extent, right? Now, if you see the application of graphene, you see this energy storage. So batteries, almost 19% of application, electronics 27%. So that is the demand of graphene today, and biomedical is less than 2%, where dentistry is hardly anything. So this parent company which makes graphene in Spain has a patent for it. For them, dentistry is like a very, very small market and small application. So that's the reason they are not really paying too much of attention to this market. But if we show interest and if we start using it, surely they will increase their capacity, and I'm sure more players will come into the market and we'll see more of that, right? So if you are wondering why this material hasn't been launched in a big way, that is the reason, because graphene it's occupying limelight in other regions. So dentistry is not very important for them at this point of time, right? So again, summing up the predominant properties that really affect us is that better polymerization when you combine it with things like PMMA. Now, I told you our experience with PMMA wasn't very good as far as the hybrid prosthesis goes. Now, there are two aspects to it. One is that we use the traditional PMMA. So when we talk about a heat cure acrylic resin, हमको वो कॉलेज का DPI की डब्बी है, monomer, polymer, that is what we remember, right? That was 30 years back. Today's PMMA, unaltered PMMA, unfilled or unmodified, is far better than that PMMA because of the improvements in the chemistry. So if you buy a good quality PMMA from a very renowned company, your results will be far, far better. So as denture bases, you have Lucitone, you have Triplex, and all those are far better than what acrylics that we have used. Now, the second aspect is that the nature of graphene allows it to, it actually affects the polymerization of PMMA and increases the degree of conversion. So when you mix graphene in the, of course, designated composition, you get better conversion rate of monomer into polymer, which means that at the end of this cycle, you have very little residual monomer in the mix. This is one concern with heat cure acrylic resin, right? Degree of conversion, and we had 2% or 1.8% of residual monomer in that, right? So it is less than 0.01% in various studies. And of course, because of that, we have less water absorption. And last but not least, elasticity. This is what we really need from this material. So we have denser chains, minimum uncured monomer, minimum water absorption, and most importantly, excellent modulus of elasticity. So it's like dream come true for the ideal material that we want. So that's why this company basically went ahead and mixed it with PMMA, because they found out that PMMA probably has the greatest history of use. And then at some point, their chemical engineers did tell them that this combination will, my first question was that why not composite resin? Why PMMA? Why not combine graphene with composite and make it even stronger? But then there are obviously the finer aspects are a trade secret, but what I come to know is that it does not combine in the same way with composite at this point of time. They might experiment with nanotubules later on and maybe come out with something better in the few years, but at the moment this is the combination which is really working well. Now, they also have to concentrate on the usability, how easily it can be milled, processed and utilized by the common dental laboratories. So, that is also a concern. So, GCAM is their product, that is PMMA reinforced with graphene, and I think Ramesh will tell you the exact percentage of graphene in GCAM. There is another material called as G Strong, I will tell you about that as well. So, we have all these properties that we have already been talking about. So, it is quite obvious that material developed in Europe will undergo the usual test that they have to before it can be introduced as a biomaterial, especially in the oral cavity. So, all the biocompatibility tests have been done. They can pass on the details to you, whoever is interested. You should go through it, because before you decide to use it, you should be convinced that this has passed the usual test. In our country, nobody conducts any test. Anybody gives you a sample, you can use it, nobody is going to tell you otherwise, right? But everything is done, you have all the data, and what is really interesting now, flexural strength is a property which has been misunderstood and misused. For example, zirconia. Zirconia is very strong. We have seen marketing gimmicks like the hammer, the bulldozer, or zirconia crowns. We don't need that kind of strength in the mouth, right? What we need is a material which can actually absorb forces, which is resilient. So, what is really important is the flexural or modulus of elasticity, which is extremely high for this material. So, if somebody tells you that it has only 140 megapascal, that is right bullshit, because we have zirconia which is 1200 megapascal, we have lithium disilicate which is 400 to 500 megapascal. But really that is not the quality, that is not the benchmark or parameter which actually tells you about the survival rate of a restoration in the patient's mouth. In the laboratory, you can hit it number of times, you can do the bend test, you can do the 5-point bend test, 3-point bend test, all those things. But the real deciding factor is the flexural modulus, right, which changes, and that you will see yourself. And of course, photoelasticity, stress analysis shows that minimum stress around any biopolymer, which is quite easy to understand logically also, right. So, all this has been done, but let us see what we have actually experienced firsthand.